Would you comment on this venture and some other trends and opportunities that you see for us to consider?
Well, I'm not going to talk about venture, but if I could, can I talk about oil and gas, please?
Yes.
All right. So I'm thinking about a macro trend here that could have some legs, and I think US-based oil and gas could be a really interesting place to invest in right now. From a capital standpoint, I have a colleague who said he used to raise $300 million oil and gas funds every 3 years, and his investors were predominantly university endowments. As we know, university endowments have pretty much abandoned oil and gas, and a lot of other institutional investors have pretty much done the same. So you have a sector that needs capital, and I think that's very bullish for new investors. And then from a demand standpoint, you have a bunch of factors converging. There are countries that are trying to reduce energy reliance from hostile countries. Look at Europe right now. And then you have the rise of a global middle class, basically hundreds of millions of people buying their first cars, air conditioning units, and refrigerators. And then lastly, and most apropos maybe to current events, are the proliferation of data centers. And data centers pretty much run the modern world. They run the internet, they run AI, they run cryptocurrency, they'll probably run the next big thing, and they happen to be energy hogs. A few stats to consider, to be taken with a grain of salt, of course. One new data center comes online right now every 3 days. One new data center uses as much energy as up to 80,000 homes. And right now, 2.5% of all US energy output is consumed by data centers. And that number is expected to increase to 6% by 2030. If that comes to fruition, that would be a 140% increase in 6 years. There are very few trends that are accelerating at that kind of pace. Again, these stats are all with a grain of salt, but they illustrate sort of the magnitude of this current technological boom. And that, combined with all the other factors I just mentioned, I think make oil and gas a really intriguing place to be potentially.
Very true. I second that. We're seeing data centers being placed in locations that would not have been considered previously for data centers, but there is just such a demand for that. And I think that's an excellent point. Who else would like to weigh in or leave us with some final thoughts? Pierre?
Yeah, I'd love to make a comment, which will come back to the title of this panel, because I'm bothered by the title of our panel. This probably will get me uninvited to the next event for what I'm about to say, but when you talked about oil and gas, you didn't say something. When you talked about don't lose money, you didn't say something. Each of you didn't say something, which is, I want to be ahead of 95% of the other investors. I got to say, sorry folks, that's the stupidest thing. If you ever try to invest on that basis, you're not going to be wealthy in 5 or 10 years. That is not the objective. You may turn out to be so. I mean, certainly look at what is doing with diamonds. I am quite sure if you make this into a success, you will be far ahead of anyone else, 100%, 99%. But that is not the basis of a strategy for acquiring wealth, for growing wealth, or for maintaining and securing wealth into the future. Just a point.
I think it's actually a very great point. And thank you for being candid and sharing there, Pierre. From the standpoint of what we've been hearing from this panel, I've heard about very thoughtful points about building relationships, about having a long-term view, about thinking long-term and not just short-term. And I think that is how you stay ahead. You stay ahead not necessarily by being a first mover, although it could be that, and Cormac talked about some thoughtful ways about approaching the venture space, but maybe it's by putting your smarts to work and building those relationships and taking the time that it takes to get where you need to be. So thank you very much, and it's been our pleasure to have this panel for you.
Join the Family Office Club by visiting familyoffices.com. We look forward to seeing you at our next live event.